In this video, I'm going to compare two of my favorite AI art generators right now, FLUX Pro 1.0 and IDEOGRAM 2.0. And I'll compare these two based on 10 different prompts for a variety of different t-shirt design styles. And I'll keep track throughout to figure out whether IDEOGRAM or FLUX wins at the end. Now, this is all based on my opinion, so feel free to also follow along yourself, keep score, and then at the end of the video, comment down below which of the two won based on your opinion. So here we have the first prompt. This one is for a vintage sunset t-shirt design, one of the most popular styles out there, and definitely one that I get sales with all the time. Now, in this case, both results I think look really good. Arizona right here spelled correctly. The fonts look pretty nice, very bold. The AIs follow the prompt right here, bold letters at the bottom of the image. The graphics also look very accurate, but one thing that I prefer with IDEOGRAM is the simplicity and the fact that this actually looks like a sort of vintage sunset design that someone drew in Illustrator, whereas on the left we've got a bit more of a like detailed illustration, which looks great and it's fine and it can definitely get sales. Like I do get sales with these kind of FLUX designs as well. However, sometimes simplicity is key and king, because if you zoom out, the design on the right is a lot easier to process than the design on the left. And if you think about people shopping on their phones, everything is very, very tiny on the screen, and that's why oftentimes having less detail can be better for your sales. So in this case, I do prefer the IDEOGRAM result, even though it does look a little bit lackluster and compared to FLUX. And even though both results look really good and can definitely get sales, I think IDEOGRAM did a better job right here. So I'll just drag this to the, where should we put it up? I'll drag this up here right here to remember that in this case, IDEOGRAM won. But again, keep track of this. This is just my opinion. Keep track of your own opinion as well and keep score yourself so we can compare at the end. Just to let you know, my Black Friday sale is now live on philipanalyst.com. You can get 50% off all of my graphics and prompt bundles, as well as 30% off all of my courses. On top of that, everyone who places an order during the Black Friday offer will get 2 exclusive bonus files. You will get some Christmas prompts as well as a Christmas graphics bundle, and these are only available during this Black Friday sale. And I'm also going to give 3 of you a full refund once the sale has ended. And speaking of, it does end on the 29th of November. Prompt number 2 is for the messy hair bun style, and in this case we've got 2 very good results again. I do like both of them for different reasons. I think on the right hand side this definitely looks a lot like a sort of messy hair bun graphic that you would find on Creative Fabrica, for example. But I do not love the sunglasses. I think this is one part where IDEOGRAM didn't do too well, not only because it kind of looks like a Ray-Ban fake right here, but also because there's a literal like photograph of a galaxy, whereas the prompt says galaxy themed lens. And I did have something along these lines in mind. FLUX did a better job of the glasses, in my opinion. The graphic, obviously, of the sort of the girl right here is again more detailed. It's a lot more cartoony, whereas this is more of a silhouette, simplistic, one-colored style. But both of these can sell. Like this kind of AI girl themed design can get sales. I've sold some of these before with FLUX, or DALL-E 3 can do this style quite well too. Now, I do quite like the pattern that's embedded right here into the font with IDEOGRAM. I think that matches the hair and everything quite well. And I also prefer how it's interpreted. This part of the prompt right here, star-like sparkles are scattered around. I think IDEOGRAM did a way better job of those, whereas here we have stars, like actual stars around the FLUX graphic. So yeah, it's a tough one on this. I think both are decent results, but I think the left-hand side does look better. Also, the text is easier to read. Whilst I do like the pattern effect on the right, it does make it a little bit harder to process. And yeah, I do think the left side slightly wins this one. So this round goes to FLUX. And a big part of that is the sunglasses. I just think they look kind of ugly on the right. But yeah, definitely still a good result or decent result from both of these. Now, one thing that these AI tools often struggle with is very long sentences. So I had to test it right here. We've got, it's not easy being my wife's arm candy, but here I am nailing it. And both of these tools managed to get the sentence right. Now, little side note here, I did run this prompt multiple times. It wasn't perfect from the start. I probably did get about 2 or 3 runs per tool with this prompt. So about 8 images, maybe 12 images, and a bunch of them were spelled incorrectly. a bunch of them were spelled right. These are the best results. It does show that they are really good with text accuracy if you give them the chance. One thing to note here is IDEOGRAM put this on a t-shirt mockup. That often happens if you have t-shirt as a keyword in the prompt. It doesn't really happen with FLUX. Sometimes FLUX gives you really nice results if you add t-shirt design or t-shirt design graphic, but IDEOGRAM doesn't. It adds a mockup. The actual text is still good right here. Like, I do really like the font, the way the font looks with that texture effect, and you can still remove the background. That's not an issue. But if you want to avoid this kind of mock-up style, then just remove t-shirt if you're using IDEOGRAM. It's a bit tough for me to choose actually which one is better right here. I do like both designs and they both did a good job of spelling it correctly. They're both easy to read. I think the right hand side is probably slightly better, IDEOGRAM, because again, simplicity, you don't need these extra lines right here, and also wife is spelled quite small in this result from FLUX, whilst wife is actually quite an important part of this composition of this design. Here we've got wife very, very large. So yeah, if I had to compare the two and if I could only pick one to try and sell on my shirts, I would probably go with the right option. So IDEOGRAM wins this, but both can clearly manage to put long sentences together after a few runs. Now moving on to prompt number 4, here we've got the watercolor style with a set of 6 home plants. I think both of the results look fairly similar. They both look really good. Like, I'd happily use either of the results, but at a sort of closer glance, I slightly prefer IDEOGRAM in its simplicity. Again, it's a little bit more flat and simple, whereas this has a lot of sort of dimension. It's kind of 3D almost, which looks good, but for POD graphics, this kind of more flat style is often better in my opinion. And also one thing I noticed is that IDEOGRAM actually gave these home plants a lot more variety. We've got some color right here, some different kind of, what do you call these, leaves? I'm not much of a plant expert, but over here we have 3 that look extremely similar, these 3 right here. And then also the bottom side plants almost look the same. There's only one actual bit of color right here. In this case, we've got a lot more variation. So yeah, I think whilst both results definitely look good, IDEOGRAM does win this round. Does look slightly nicer, more unique, and also a bit flatter in the style, which is always good for POD. Next up is the kawaii style, Juna's favorite, and I think in this case, I don't need to talk about it too long. FLUX just looks way nicer with this style. Like, that's definitely a massive advantage to using FLUX. The sort of cartoony kawaii style does seem to be better in most cases with FLUX. I've struggled with the new IDEOGRAM version to get a decent result right here. This still looks good. It doesn't look terrible, but FLUX just makes it look way nicer in my opinion, and that's me saying that after having tested it many times and not just this one time right here. So anyway, this to me personally is a clear win to FLUX with the kawaii style. So I also wanted to give these two a really tough challenge. This is not really a serious one because you can create these kind of graphics with AI, at least not yet, but I wanted to see which one of these tools can do this better, because there is a t-shirt design style where you have a very detailed chart of different animals or different objects and then the names underneath. In this case, it's even harder because it's meant to be a design that shows the dinosaur alphabet, meaning lots of different dinosaurs next to one another, and then in the order of the alphabet, you would have the name of each dinosaur written underneath. So at a quick glance, I prefer the FLUX result because we actually have dinosaurs, whereas with IDEOGRAM, we have letters that are morphed with dinosaurs in a very bad way. Like, look at this, that looks terrible. Yeah, this doesn't look like a dinosaur either. It's kind of a bit more deformed than with FLUX here. Some of the dinosaurs actually look all right. The text obviously doesn't make any sense. It's not in the order of the alphabet. It's not actual dinosaur names, but I think overall FLUX did a better job right here. Whilst they both failed, got to give this round to FLUX. So yeah, these kind of detailed chart illustrations still don't work with AI, but currently FLUX is slightly ahead. Moving on, here we've got another very popular design style that does well for a variety of different niches. Many different topics work well combined with the American flag. Both tools did a decent job of creating the American flag, but the overall composition, in my opinion, looks better with FLUX because the soldiers are a lot bigger and kind of a lot more prominent than they are on the right. And then also, I kind of prefer the look of the American flag overall. I also like the font right here. Thank you, veterans. That's a really cool looking serif font. I tend to find that FLUX seems to come up with better looking text in some cases. Like, this is still a good font, don't get me wrong. It kind of looks similar to Veneer, but sometimes FLUX is just a little bit more creative, whereas IDEOGRAM tends to kind of go with the same sort of styles a lot of the time if you don't give it enough direction. Like here we've got written in bold, white, letters. So it's kind of giving the tools space to come up with their own type of font or font style. I prefer the Flux composition overall. I think especially if you zoom out, it's very clear that this one on the left is easy to process. On the right, you can barely see that this is Soldiers, and especially scrolling on a phone, that's a big difference. So yeah, this round goes to Flux quite clearly in my opinion. But what about rainbow designs? Well, prompt number 8 has the AIs create a vibrant and colorful rainbow with the text birthday girl underneath written in a bold, groovy font. I purposely wanted to try the kind of groovy style in combination with these rainbows because it does sell well. Now, both tools again did a good job. These definitely look like the type of rainbow designs we see out there. Flux added a ton of hearts. That is also kind of a thing that Flux likes to do, is add loads and loads of little elements around the graphics, which can be good, but also can be disturbing and kind of add unnecessary clutter we don't need. And that makes the design harder to process. Sometimes once you've upscaled or vectorized these, you would maybe want to take away some of them. At least that's what I would do with this graphic. It's way too many hearts. Whereas Ideogram kept it more simple. We do have some hearts. It's definitely taken that into consideration because it does say that right here, heart-shaped designs around or surrounding the rainbow, and just generally also did a better job of the font, I would say. This actually looks like a groovy font, whereas this right here just kind of looks, you know, fun and rounded, but it doesn't scream groovy to me. I do like the dots in the text. That's quite cool. But yeah, overall, I think Ideogram kept it simple, kept it a lot easier to process, didn't add a lot of unnecessary things, and got the groovy font right. So in this case, whilst both results are pretty nice, Ideogram clear win in my opinion. So now we've got prompt number 9 with the festive style or a festive t-shirt design, and both of these look good for different reasons in my opinion. On the left, what I really like is the fact that we have this really cool looking font right here with a kind of slight 3D drop shadow, and we've got these golden lines inside of the letters, and then the kind of less important part of the phrase is in a different font underneath. Contrasts very well. It's still in gold like the drop shadow, but yeah, these font styles complement each other very well. I also really like the fish graphic. I think the fish looks better from Flux than it does from Ideogram. However, what Ideogram did really well is it created this kind of ugly Christmas sweater design style very well. Like these lines are perfect. The baubles and the snowflakes, the way they're laid out right here, very neatly spaced. Same at the bottom. Like this almost looks like it was put together in Photoshop or Illustrator. In my opinion, you can barely tell it's AI. It's that neat. Whereas, yeah, Flux struggles a little bit with creating this kind of ugly Christmas sweater design style, at least in a neat format. It's not mentioned in the prompt. Just says festive design, and still Ideogram nailed it. So yeah, considering both are good, I think Ideogram wins this. It just looks more like a t-shirt design, like a festive Christmas design style to me. And whilst I do think this is a good example of Flux kind of being more creative with the text, this is still a good font. Like sure, it kind of looks like Veneer again, like in one of the early examples. It's a bit more basic. It does work. Like this kind of basic font with a bit of a grunge effect does work for t-shirts. So yeah, I do think Ideogram won this one. I'm curious to hear what you think as well, because yeah, this is definitely a close one, and they both have a lot of nice aspects in the design. Lastly, here we've got a floral design for Nature is My Happy Place. I think at first glance, I definitely prefer the Flux result. It just looks a lot more symmetric. I really like the way this font looks right here, the scripty font. Not to say that this font is bad, by the way. This still looks really cool. And I also kind of like how Ideogram knows to add this stroke outline so it's easy to read above the flowers. This circular flower layout right here does look pretty cool, whereas here it's not really all the way around. It does say that in the prompt, I think. But yeah, the flowers are positioned in a circular arrangement. So it's not 100% adhered to the prompt right here, Ideogram. If you zoom out, I think Ideograms is slightly easier to read, to be honest, because this text is kind of bolder. Yeah, I don't know. This kind of reminds me a little bit of Lobster, if you know the Lobster font from Google. The P's at least do, and the Y. But yeah, anyway, I do like both results. I'm very split again. My initial thoughts were definitely Flux, but then Ideogram is also very nice and easy to read. But overall, I think in most cases, whenever you use Flux for floral designs, they do tend to look better than Ideogram, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm a bit split right here, but overall, I think Flux floral themes work better. So I'm going to give this one to Flux. But yeah, both these results are definitely really good in my opinion. Well, that came as a surprise. I just added them up and it's a draw, which actually kind of represents my feelings about these two tools quite well. I should have maybe added like another prompt to make it an uneven number, but to be honest, I don't really know which one is better. They're both really good for different reasons. And in some cases, I would take Flux or Ideogram In other cases, I'll take Ideogram over Flux. It is really tough to choose. And yeah, in this comparison, it's a draw. In my opinion. Let me know your result down below in the comments. I found a really effective new background remover that seems to get better results than Clip Drop. And if you want to see how to use it, make sure to check out this tutorial next.